Hi, my name is Jacki Edry, and I'm honored to be here on Aspika. I'm very, very excited to be speaking to a group of people who think in a nonlinear fashion, who have different minds, and who are at the beginning of their lives and off to do incredible things. So I'm very, very, very excited to be here. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here and about my journey. When I was in high school, I started working with autistic children, and I wound up writing my thesis about educational programs for autistic kids. And then after that, I had a son many years later who is autistic, and I have 5 neurodivergent kids. Everyone is a little bit different. They have different types of things, such as dyslexia, ADHD, auditory processing disorder, and Earlin syndrome, which I'll tell you about a little bit later, and different kinds of challenges and different kinds of neurotypes. And I, as a parent and as a professional, I was working in education, and I was also doing parent groups and teaching people how to advocate and to understand people with sensory and neurological differences. And then 10 years ago, I had a whopping brain tumor discovered on my brainstem. And I had underwent surgery. And when I woke up, all of my senses were scrambled. And in essence, what happened to me was that I had to learn to reevaluate the world in a new brain and function differently with a very different brain. And I observed in myself many of the things that I've been observing as a parent of neurodivergent kids or as a professional or educator. Suddenly they were part of me. I've always been a nonlinear thinker, but I didn't have sensory challenges. And suddenly I found myself in a body that did whatever the heck it wanted. And it was very, very sensitive to all the different senses. I had visual disturbances, and I had auditory processing issues, and I couldn't figure out how to navigate my body. And it was a long process to learn how to begin to function and then start to thrive again in this different body and in this different brain. And I realized that I had been given a gift. And the gift was that I'd been on both sides of the coin as a parent and as an educator and a professional. Suddenly, I was living in a body that was in a brain that was also neurodivergent, and I had a lot of insights. And I decided that I needed to do something with this. I also decided that because God had left me on this earth and I was still alive, I must have something to do. It's actually part of Judaism. I'm Jewish, and one of the things that are part of Judaism is understanding that we all have a mission in our lives. And I realized that my mission was actually to take the insights that I had gained along the way and to share them with the world in order to help others understand what it's like to live with a different brain and to manage a sensory system that was also challenging and made perception sometimes look very unusual. So what I did was I wrote a book, and my book is called Moving Forward. Hold it up here for a second. I don't know if it's backwards, but Moving Forward, Reflections on Autism, Neurodiversity, Brain Surgery, and Faith. And the purpose of the book was to share that knowledge with the world. So that's a little bit about me and my kids. And what I'd like to share with you now is a little bit of things that I discuss in my book and in my blog. I also have a blog that I've learned along the way. The first thing is that we're all different, but not lesser. If someone has a different brain, that doesn't mean they're less worthy or less talented or less capable of someone that's considered to be somewhat neurotypical. Actually, neurotypical is something I'm not really sure what that means, because everyone has a different brain, which is what neurodiversity is about. But there is some sort of standard that most people expect in education, per se, that people would learn in a specific manner. And people who don't learn in that specific manner or think in that specific manner, which tends to be very linear, they're given the term neurodistinct or neurodivergent. And Temple Grandin, who's a very, very famous autistic woman who does incredible things, said, the world needs all types of mind. And I am totally with that statement. The world definitely needs all types of mind. So every person, I can get back to my Jewish philosophy, is that every person has a specific mission. And we all have a different task to carry out in this world. So if you've been given a different brain, that means that your gift is to be with that different brain. You are perfect as you are with your different way of thinking. And whatever your neurotype is specially made for you. So what you can do is use that neurotype or your different talents or different way of thinking to bring that into the world and to carry out your mission or your task, whatever it may be. And my experience is if you become comfortable with that and you don't try to be something that you're not, but you learn that you are a divine individual and a wonderful human being that is built in a specific way with a specific task, then you feel comfortable, or I feel comfortable, and my kids have learned to feel comfortable with themselves and learn to grow, acquire the skills you need to make life easier, to navigate the world, to bring your special gifts to fruition, and to do what you want to do and achieve your goals. So you need to learn different skills. But basically, the more you accept yourself that you are built in your own specific way, then you have the opportunity to grow and achieve your goals and feel good about yourself. So that's a different message than perhaps many of you, and I know certainly all of my children and the hundreds of kids that I've worked with over the years get through the educational system, because the educational system is not geared to understand children or people with non-traditional thoughts or learning abilities. So they oftentimes tend to make you think that maybe you're not trying hard enough, or you're thinking of things off topic per se, because you think in a non-linear fashion or associative thinking, and then you will go off on a tangent. And for the typical thing in the school system where they want you to just spit back answers, you might not fit in. So teachers, or a lot of the kids I know, they wind up feeling through the educational system that they're somehow deficient, or their brains aren't working the way they are expected to. But actually, that's not the case. It's just that the school system isn't designed to understand and teach someone who learns differently. So the minute you understand that, and you understand that you are working much harder to thrive in a regular school environment, and you disregard those messages perhaps of not being good enough or lazy, or that other kids in class might think that you don't have as much abilities as they have, and you just realize you're just doing things differently, then you will start to understand what you need, and you can start self-advocating and asking for the accommodations that you need in order to let your individual talents shine. And one of the things that I noticed, that a lot of people who need accommodations, they feel that somehow it's like putting them an unfair advantage. And actually, that's not the case. The educational system is not generous with giving out accommodations at all. Actually, they tend to make things much harder. They don't want people to have oral exams. They don't want people to use assistive technology and things like that. I know of instances in my family where I have children with diagnosed with dyslexia and Ehrlich syndrome, and the words are moving all over the page, but they say if you're taking a language test, then no one's going to allow to reach you because they want to test your language skills. And actually what a test is if you can read or not, or if the words are sitting on the page and not your abilities. So accommodations are meant not to put you at an unfair advantage, and not because you're lesser, but to allow your internal abilities and knowledge to actually shine, to come to light. Because if you have a different brain, then a lot of times you're experiencing some technical difficulties, some sensory issues that are interfering from you to what you understand and what you think, or what you're picking up from the environment, and then you process it, and then you go to write it, or you answer on a test, or whatever it may be, and your internal knowledge doesn't come to light. So those accommodations are technical difficulties, and if the education system has decided that you are eligible for them, I advise you, and I suggest warmly that you embrace them, because those are the things that will help you to achieve what you, for others to recognize and understand what you really know and what your real talents are. And another thing I want to say to you is that educational system, that the workplace is very different from the educational system. I understand that once you're in college or you go into the natural workforce, a lot of things that you're limited by in the educational system and earlier education before college are actually completely irrelevant once you get into the workplace. So workplaces, especially lots and lots of tech companies and lots of industries, are looking for the creative talent of neurodivergent minds. And they actually offer all the accommodations and trying to learn how to integrate people who have these talents into the workplace. And they're seen as an advantage and not as a disadvantage, as is often the case in the traditional educational system, particularly in lower education. Another thing is that sometimes you don't succeed as well as you want to because you haven't been given all the accommodations. But I'm sure that everybody wants to succeed. And you can. You might need to learn some skills, and you need to self-advocate. And part of the reason, if you haven't succeeded along the way, is because you haven't been given all the tools or skills that you need. But know you can always improve. Brains have plasticity. So sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes you don't know where to begin. Especially after my brain surgery, I had to learn to do everything again. I had to learn to walk, talk, eat, and write and speak. And I still stutter sometimes. I've done it a few times already on this call. And brains can always plastic. They can form new connections if we just keep working and learning new skills and persisting and having a positive mindset and a growth mindset, which will take you far, which means you can make mistakes, and it means that through mistakes you learn and you grow and you take them on as challenges, as opposed to being that something wrong with you because you've made a mistake. Mistakes are fantastic learning opportunities. That's the way we grow, and most of the big discoveries in the world were actually mistakes that were made. So as a person who's neurodivergent, and often there are a lot of challenges and a lot of mistakes along the way, realize that it's just a growth process and that it's going to take you really far. The more we work to gain skills and utilize as many supports and accommodations as we can to take care of the technical problems that we have along the way, and we neutralize them, and then their true talents and inner dreams will develop and come to bring them to fruition, and you will succeed. Just remember that you've been given a gift, but the gift that you have is also a challenge. And one of the things that I always tell my kids, like that have people with ADHD, there's an imagery that I really like to use with them. I remember when my daughter was very young, I said to her, okay, she had serious attention issues, and she was, had a hard time sitting in a seat in school. And I said to her, it's not a disorder, attention deficit disorder. It's divided attention. Now, divided attention, you can learn what to do with it and then use it to your advantage. So let's say if you have an old computer, if you're working on an old computer, you can run maybe 1, 2, tops 3 programs simultaneously, and then it will go, and it will likely crash, and you'll have to start it all over again. That's the kind of computer that I grew up with a number of years ago. And then you take today's technology. Now, if you take today's technology, let's take the latest iPhone. Okay, the latest iPhone. I bet anyone on this call in this audience can actually look at an iPhone and probably not even keep track of the amount of apps you can run simultaneously. Lots of them. And you can do incredible things at the same time. Or you can have 20 windows or 50 or 70, which I often do, Windows tabs open on your web browser and work on all these things simultaneously. Now, that's divided attention. And that's an incredible thing. But the person who has the ability, or the iPhone that has the ability to do all these things, you need to learn how to operate it. The older computer, the older model, you probably didn't have to do too much to operate it. You just press 1, 2 buttons, and it could get things done slowly, one thing after another. Now, if you've been given this gift of this high-powered machine like this iPhone, then you need to learn to work it and how to manage those and toggle between apps and streamline things so you don't wind up in other places. Once you learn to do that, then you can do incredible things. And that's the 2 different kinds of brains I'm talking about. If you have an ADHD brain, or oftentimes it overlaps with autism or dyslexia or any kind of different brain, then you're likely going to have to do a lot more in order to learn to drive the machine, okay? But once you do acquire those skills, and sometimes use assistive technology to help you along that way, then you will probably be at a very significant advantage than the average person that can only do a few things at once. And that's the gift of neurodiversity or neurodivergence. And that's a huge gift. And I have to say that my kids, my two older kids now who have finished at school and they're out in the world, they're discovering that. They always thought I was a bit unusual for saying such things to them because, you know, they were getting very different messages at school. But now that they're out in the real world, they realize, wow, I pick up every detail. Wow, I can do incredible things. And wow, I keep getting hired and everyone wants to hire me because I pay attention to everything and I think out of the box. So they're seeing that they're now at a very, very big advantage. But you need to work hard to streamline those skills and develop them. And that's a process. Probably the biggest thing is time management, because time management is very difficult for people who are neurodivergent, especially with attention, because you get involved in one thing and that looks interesting, another thing, another thing, another thing, and the day just disappears. So there's a lot of software out there that can help you, and you should check them out to keep you on focus and track, and you can use that for your advantage. And you need to know when you're getting tired and to take breaks and things like that. And there are other things that can be very advantageous. One of the things that's been a lifesaver for me, and what you see, I have these dark glasses, they're not sunglasses, or Irlen spectral filters. Now, lots and lots of people who are neurodivergent have Irlen syndrome. It's a very common syndrome, but it is not well known. And I feel it's my really important for me to get the message out about Irlen because it saved our lives. I had 2 kids diagnosed with dyslexia and attention. They couldn't read because the things were moving around the page. And actually the problem is Irlen syndrome, which is a light processing problem. And your brain perceives and processes white light differently. And colored spectral filters restore the appropriate like they filter the light in a way that will let things settle down, and it will alleviate visual distortions. After my brain surgery, I had such severe visual distortions that I would be looking at somebody's face and it would melt, or I would look at a staircase and I would get vertigo, or I'd have to keep my eyes closed in a car. And I would walk with a cane, and I had no depth perception. And the minute I put colored filter, and it sounds crazy because it's just a little color, and it's a custom color. The minute I put a filter on, all those things disappeared as if they'd never existed. I had 4 years of not being able to walk out the door almost because of those things. And my kids, who had had years and years of remedial instruction and still couldn't read more than a few paragraphs, got their colored lenses and started reading fluently. And it's like a miracle. So if I can make one suggestion, if anybody has any kind of challenges or reading issues or attention issues, the first thing to do is to check IRLEN, IRLEN.com. Go in and check, and if you can fill out some questionnaires and see if perhaps you might have IRLEN syndrome, because it's very high prevalence amongst neurodivergent individuals. And unfortunately, because it's not a measurable, it's a neurological issue as opposed to a hardware per se, an eyeball issue, or if it's hearing, something that's measurable by an eye doctor or a didactic assessment, then schools or regular assessors don't pick up on it. It's got to be an IRLEN provider that can test you and pick it up, and then you just get a colored lens, and it sorts a big problem. So that's another thing that's a real quality of life issue. And the same sort of thing can happen with other assistive technology if you have auditory processing issues, which sometimes make it difficult to understand what's going on and can also seem like attention issues. And if there are technologies like nuance hearing or the iPhone Live Listen feature, you can use them to help you understand what's going on, let's say in a lecture. You can put the nuance hearing machine on your desk and with an earphone, and it will directly put the sound directly into your ear. Or an Live Listen, you can put your cell phone next to someone who's speaking, and it will give you to your AirPods, and it will help you understand speech in a noisy environment. So there's so much assistive technology out there. There's assistive technology for reading, for dyslexia, for time management. There's tons of it. And I suggest that you check out everything and all the technologies that are out there to try and make your life easier, because it will. And the more you eliminate the technical difficulties, the more it will free up your cognitive resources, and then you will be able to learn much easier and remember what you were learning or reading or hearing. And then you will have the time to create and to dream and to exceed in what you want to do. And one more thing is just to remind you that you're a divine human. You're a divine being just as you are. Learn to follow your heart. I'm sure you'll discover the incredible things that you can contribute to the world. And the more skills you develop and support you have, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, try, taste, go out and experience the world. And I am absolutely sure you will go really far. And if you would like, you can follow my blog, you can read my book, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to interact, linked up, share ideas, point you in the right direction, because I think, like I said, my mission here is to help make the world a better place and make people more aware of neurodivergence and make life easier for those of us who have different brains. So feel free to reach out anytime, and looking forward to hearing from you.